As for genres that I despise, there aren't really any I despise as such, but there are some that just don't engage me. I mean, sports simulations, they just don't do anything for me, but then sport doesn't do anything for me in general, so that's probably understandable. That's about it, really. There's no particular kind of game that I absolutely won't play. Number 5. The terms hardcore and casual gamer are thrown around a lot these days. Which, if either, do you class yourself as, or do you consider yourself an entirely separate type of gamer? If so, why? Before I went to university, I was a proper hardcore gamer. I used to play games all the time, and I was part of various clans online. I used to play TFC, Team Fortress Classic online, and it was part of a very successful clan back then. I was the Uber spy. I used to like stabbing people in the back. It was great fun. And I also used to play a lot of Diablo 2 online as well. That was good fun. But since then, I've become much more considered. Not casual as such, but I will only really dedicate myself to those games that really intrigue me and that I think will pay me back in terms of the investment that I put into them. Not in terms of money, but in terms of the emotional investment and the time, etc. Excuse me. So, I would say I'm a considered gamer. I'm a connoisseur gamer, if you like. There's only very particular games that I will bother to play these days, because I just don't have the time. I find that they take up space in my head, and a lot of my free time is dedicated to writing at the moment. I'm really trying to get this short story collection done and published, so... Number 6. Is there any game series of games that you have enjoyed more than any other? If so, why? Likewise, is there any single series of games that you cannot bring yourself to play, and why? Yes, there are lots, actually. There are several series that I have had an incredible emotional reaction to. The Final Fantasy games again. Final Fantasy VII provoked an immense reaction in me. Because it was one of the first times I came across a game series where I did feel that intensity of emotion for the characters. When there are scenes such as when Aerith dies, and I couldn't believe it. I was utterly devastated. And also the emotional development of characters such as Sephiroth, and so on and so forth. That really got me, as did Final Fantasy VIII. I think the ending to Final Fantasy VIII is one of the most beautiful pieces of work you'll find in a computer game series. Like yourself, the Soul Reaver games, they really drew me in. And it's so sad that Tony J, who played the Elder God, has died, because there's no one else who can play that character. And the series isn't finished. The story isn't done. Not by a long chalk. Although there were suggestions at the end of the last game that it may be coming to an end. But I don't know what they can do now. I cannot think of anyone else who can play that character. So... Baldur's Gate. Now, Baldur's Gate is special. I've got to make a special mention of Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate is one of those games... It's not a game, really. Game is a... It's not a term you can apply to it. It's too well conceived. It's too immersive. Baldur's Gate is a series of games on the PC, and it's essentially Dungeons and Dragons in computer game form. And it follows a set narrative in which you play a nameless character. You create, as in Dungeons and Dragons, you create the character yourself. Or every element of it you create. You create the way it looks, you create its sex, you create its inclinations, its weaknesses. Even whether it's good or evil, you have a spectrum of alignments, right from good and lawful to chaotic and evil. So you can be lawful good, or chaotic good, or neutral good, or lawful evil, or chaotic evil, or lawful neutral, etc., etc., and so on and so forth. And as you play the game, not only do you learn about the history of your character, it turns out that your character is the child of a god from Faerun, the Baldur, the Dungeons and Dragons world, if you like, a god called Baal, who is the Lord of Murder. That's his aspect, and you are one of his children. And it's sort of about how you discover your own nature and destiny, but you shape it. That's the interesting thing. Your actions within the game determine what the eventual outcome is, and there are many, many potential outcomes. But it's even more immersive than that, because your character's alignment and reputation can shift up and down depending on the way you act towards people and what you do in the game. Every single little mission and quest and whatnot has various different outcomes, some good, some bad, some incidental, and so on and so forth. And some of them you will not have a happy ending. It's as simple as that. They do not have happy endings. They have very, very negative endings indeed, regardless of what you do. And this helps to determine the way your character develops and the way your party develops as well. And it comes to the point where you actually care a great deal about not only your own character but the party that surrounds them, because your character develops relationships with them, even to the point whereby they have romantic relationships. And there's one character, if you're a male character, you can, and you're generally good, then you can form a romantic relationship with a character called Aerie. And Aerie is she's some species of elf of some sort. She's one of my least favourite characters actually, because she's very simpering and annoying. But if you do develop a relationship with her, your character ends up actually having a child with her, which is absolutely fantastic. There are just not that many computer games that allow for that kind of consequence. And it's also one of those games that is life-absorbing. Not only is it immersive, but you can play it again and again and again and again. There are so many different outcomes, and so many different paths, and so many things you do not have to do. You don't have to do half of the quests in the game in order to complete it. You can leave hundreds of things undone, and there's so much that you'll miss every single time you play it. So it's well worth playing through again and again and again. And this is before you even get into playing it as a different type of character. I mean, the character classes are huge. There are loads of different character classes. And also the shifting alignments. You can have different outcomes depending on the alignments that you have. I mean, I'm playing through it again at the moment on and off. And I'm trying to be evil in this one, because I've never played it through as an evil character before. My character is a sorcerer. And I'm trying to put together and to maintain an evil party, which is very difficult because they have constant arguments and bickering, and they don't like it when you do unselfish things, so, which is kind of difficult. It makes the game much more problematic because your reputation goes down, you see, as you do evil things. And if your reputation goes down, then certain characters within the game, non-player characters, will interact with you differently, or they won't interact with you at all. But it is very interesting. That's one game I will make a special mention of. Other games, System Shock. The System Shock games are flat out the most frightening games I've ever played in my life. Resident Evil is great, don't get me wrong, I like Resident Evil, but it's nothing compared to System Shock. System Shock 2 is thus far the most frightening game I have ever played in my life. It's so frightening that it's one of those games where you are actually afraid. You are actually afraid to take your character through into the next room for fear of what's going to be in there. It is fantastic.